And your book actually talks about pretty much different types or categories of Muslims that live in America. So it talks about first generation immigrants, converts, including many Black Americans, and also children of first generation immigrants and converts. So it's very representative of the diversity of the Muslim community and the different issues that are going on with, let's say, the different sub communities within the Muslim community at large. And at the first chapter of the book, you talked about the history of Muslims in America. And you mentioned that this is maybe a missing component in Islamic curricula. So, why do you think this is important? Why do you think it's important for our youth to learn the history of Muslims in America? And what impact do you think that would have on them?
Yes, if I may go back just a little bit to give a context. So the book is, I organized the information as narratives, so themes of that emerge from the conversations I've had with young Muslims, as well as from public discourse, the ways that Muslims talk about themselves and they are talked about. And often those conversations revolve around, ideas that put Muslims outside of America. And so, and having taught in Islamic schools, a lot of times, often I should say, Islamic curriculum focuses, or Muslim schools and Islamic schools focus on matters of beliefs and practice. How do you maintain the Muslim part of your identity? And in terms of the public school, the stories and the contributions of many people of color are excluded from the public school curriculum. So the young people, the kids of color in general, whether they're Muslim or not, do not see themselves in those stories that are told about the nation, about who we are as a people in America. And in Islamic schools, that is also missing. It's as if Islam, the story of Islam and the story of Muslims stopped in, with the caliphates, basically. And there is no ongoing history that includes these various chapters. There's no, Islam in Africa is not talked about. Islam in Europe is not talked about. And I'm not talking about the recent chapters of Islam in Europe, but there are old communities of Muslims in Europe. And also Islam has deep roots in America, and that is not talked about. In our schools, history is the history of the founding of Islam, the different, Khalifa periods, and that's it. And so first, it really compromises the education that they're receiving in the sense that there is no relevance. That history is not connected to their current reality. And secondly, they don't see Islam in America, Islam having existed in America. There's no chapter of Islam in America. How long has it been here? What does it look like? Who are its, founding fathers and mothers in terms of the history and contributions? And that has significant consequences. A lot of the curriculum is impoverished by it because the focus often is on, read the Quran, read the Hadith, and this is halal and haram. And and the adab, you respect your elders, and so forth. And I'm not minimizing those. I just think those concepts will be enriched by making them relevant to the young people's realities in America. The other thing is that Muslims then don't see themselves in the history, in the story of America, and it reinforces the foreign face that Islam has in the larger society.
Right. It's actually sad that, as you said, like many of our children or even us, we don't really know our history or the history of Islam in America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I read the book, I was surprised to know how old the first convert to Islam was, or how early in time the first convert to Islam was, and the first Muslim immigrants that came to America were. So Yeah,
And also the deeper history that goes all the way back, to the Africans that were brought to this country in the slave trade, even though that history is not continuous to current date, but those are, people who were the first Muslims on this lands, and claiming them and their history and their stories that they have told, because those stories, some of those stories are published in the library, in American libraries, and are part of American history. So claiming them as our own also centers, Black contribution to American Islam, both in the past, and connecting that into their current contribution.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that either. Esma and I had talked about previous discussion that we had, how Islam is often affiliated with the Middle East or a specific region of the world. And we don't think about Muslims elsewhere, like Muslims in Asia and Muslims in America, or Muslims even in Africa. So this is a really important aspect of Islamic history that's missing from Islamic education in general. So it's really good to bring these points up.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if and part of it is, the Islamic schools, they're carrying a huge burden in terms of educating the young people. They often have limited resources. They are trying to meet a need, but that need is also determined by the Muslim community. If the Muslim community is serious about creating that curriculum, they will provide the resources, both in terms of intellectual resources. We have a lot of academics who know this history, but also the financial resources and the training that the teachers will need to teach that, and making the argument that this is not irrelevant. This is actually Islamic education, to teach them about, the chapter of the American chapter of the history of Islam, or the African chapter of the history of Islam, because otherwise, it's just, it seems like it's an Arab religion, which Arabs are a minority in Islam, as most Muslims would know.
Yep. Yeah, just visit any mosque and you will find most probably Arabs do represent a minority in the mosque. That's my experience. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a very interesting and much needed project, actually, for our community.
Inshallah, we will work on that.
So we're having at least these discussions about it and bringing it to people's awareness.